Why don't we start diving in? So let me give a brief intro. What am I going to talk about? So I want to talk about AI and the best ways you can use AI for front-end development. Some of this will still be applicable to back-end development, and I will tell you that a lot of people who come to Builder, for instance, are like, hey, we want help with sort of AI development on the front end. They're not even front-end developers because, a lot of companies will have a back-end dev work on a React app, and it's like, well, that can be really helpful too. So what I want to cover, I want to cover a bit of Cursor. I want to cover just my most key Cursor tips, the most important workflow I think people don't use in Cursor and need to. I'll explain how to use it and give a demo of that. I will show, when we're talking front-end development, we're going to be talking a lot about integration with designs, right? And design tools, because there's 100 AI programming tools. If you don't use Cursor, there's Windsurf. If you don't use Windsurf, there's GitHub Copilot. If you don't use that, there's Tray. There's ChatGPT can also control. There's Claude. There's so many. And none of them actually connect to Figma natively. And a good connection to Figma is actually quite difficult. And you need to use the right integration, the right workflow, etc. So I'll cover all of that and go all the way from sort of design to production ready in a couple different contexts. I'll be demoing the whole time. You won't hear me yapping with no movement on the screen for much longer. With all that said, let's jump right in. And as a reminder, again, put questions in the Q&A section. I'll get to as many as I can. First question, I will answer live. Will this session be recorded and available at a later date? Yes, we will email everyone the recording afterwards. Keep hitting me with questions, and let's go into some stuff. So let's start here. I am in Cursor. So really quickly, I'm in Cursor and I am running a simple Vite app. A couple things to point out. One, the stuff I'm going to show you can be done in Cursor and Windsurf and soon in GitHub Copilot. And I also think the quality that you'll get, or I tend to get, is roughly in that order too. So what I mean is Cursor, I think, is the best for a front-end developer, especially a more experienced front-end developer. Windsurf orients a little bit more for like beginners, more like Bolt's lovable, type alternative, but locally. But Windsurf is still very good, and the features you need will be here as well. The most common thing I see people use is GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot can't do a lot I'm going to show you, and it certainly doesn't do it well. GitHub Copilot's autocomplete is plenty good. But GitHub Copilot's edits mode, the thing that I'm going to spend most of our time on, the bar where you can type to just have the AI build whatever you want, is not good. Like, it's very laughably bad, in my opinion. But there's a huge silver lining. If you use Visual Copilot Insiders, I think is what they call it, the beta version, the early access version, which I think is publicly available, anybody can do it, and you use their new agent mode in Copilot edits, it has all these features, and it is actually quite good. So GitHub Copilot is going to get better. So to preface this, I mentioned this to some folks recently, but I recently just yesterday morning or 2 mornings ago was talking to one of our senior engineers on the team, and he was mentioning that he does not hardly write code at all anymore. He just types code into the box, and the box can just do whatever you want. So this is Cursor's agent box. So their box now, and most people have this on the right side of their IDE. I prefer to have this on the left side, so I flip the file picker and that. The only annoying thing is they don't reverse these buttons, so it's a little confusing. But anyway, if you use the agent mode, which is new, you used to be able to do it with some settings and some options. Now it's sort of the default. You can get to it with Command I, toggle it on and off too. This box requires no context management. So if you're used to like, oh, in Cursor, you need to specify, I need to edit app.tsx, you don't have to do that anymore. Even in very large repos. Now, it still is helpful. If the repo is very large and very complicated, it is helpful to do that. If you know what files you want to work on, don't hesitate to do it. But if you just want to type in a box and get what you want, it's shockingly good at that now. Let's take a super simple example. We're going to start simple, and then I'm going to quickly get more complex, because I'm going to assume to some extent you have some basic familiarity with Cursor. In fact, I have a blog post I just put out of Cursor tips. It'll cover both the basics and the advanced stuff, so the team could drop that in the chat. But I'm not going to cover the super basic stuff like autocomplete. I assume you know that. I assume you know you can start typing something and then just tab to complete it. You can do multi-tab completions. That stuff is super cool. I want to focus on the things that people probably aren't using enough. And I want to clarify one thing too. I think these features are not only applicable regardless of your seniority level, rather whether you're a brand new developer or the world's most senior developer. And I also think that these features are more and more powerful and useful the more you have, the more development skills you have. So what I mean by that is, even though you can see AI do cool things, AI does need a lot of oversight and sort of babysitting. And I certainly want to make sure the point is not unclear here, where some people take away like, oh, development skills are less valuable because the AI can do it. Not even remotely true. Development skills are so valuable. The more you have development skills, the more you can use these things effectively, the more you won't let the AI derail, the more you'll make sure to keep things, in a very productive way, the more you'll unblock yourself when the AI makes mistakes. Keep building those skills because using two combined are more than the sum of their parts. So with all that said, let's jump in. So I have this brand new Create VDAP. I've got this cool counter button. I like it. I've got this spinning React logo. That's fun. And the cool thing is I can just go over here and say anything I want in the box. One other last call out before I go in. I use Claude 3.5 Sonnet. When Claude 3.7 Sonnet first came out, I was really excited because I was working on a hard problem with Cursor for a while where I was trying to get some tests to pass, and it was a very complicated one that was hard. And 3.5 wasn't doing it. So I switched to 3.7 Thinking, and 3.7 Thinking did it. It was correct. It solved the thing that 3.5 never could. I got excited. I tweeted it. Oh my God, this is amazing. Everybody go try it. And then I realized I was mistaken. The AI, without me realizing it, didn't update the code to pass the test. It updated the test to pass based on what the code was giving it, which was incorrect code and an incorrect test assert or expect result. I since have been very, very annoyed with 3.7. 3.7 is still a very good model. I would use 3.7 over GPT 4.5 or any of the OpenAI models without a doubt. But 3.7, in my experience, does more weird stuff than 3.5. Maybe I'm just super used to 3.5, but I generally recommend using 3.5 and not the default. Keep in mind one thing, though. Anthropic models, one might go down while the others are up. So I was early yesterday morning, I was doing some stuff on Claude 3.5, and then it wasn't working. I kept getting errors, retries weren't working. I switched to 3.7 and it did work. I had more issues with 3.7, but it worked again. And I didn't feel like having to hand code all this stuff. If you could avoid hand coding, I much prefer that these days. I'm a busy person. Everybody's a busy person. And the last thing I want to say before jumping into some demos here is, you know, the benefit of AI, in my opinion, is not just moving faster, moving easier, etc. It's the saving of brain cycles. So, in my opinion, if AI in this box, for instance, can automate 20%, 30%, 40%, 50% of the easy work, I don't like spending brain cycles trying to remember hard things. Like, for instance, the first thing I showed here, const delay equals this. Honestly, I know this function. I've written this function 100 times. If I wrote it by hand, I'd still have to kind of think. I'd have to be like, okay, so delay, so sure, I'll take time. Like you have to think, like probably milliseconds, that probably makes sense. Like seconds and fractions of seconds is probably less ergonomic. And then you're gonna be like, okay, so new promise. And it's like, oh yeah, so I think promise takes the resolve function first and then the error, or is like, wait, or is it resolve? Is it an object? You still have to think through these things, right? I've been programming with JavaScript for like 20 years now. It still takes some mental energy to think through this stuff. And then it's like, okay, so I want to set timeout and then resolve. Oops, and see, I'm making errors, resolve 10 or whatever. And then it's like, oh, just resolve take arguments. I forget. Does set timeout call your callback with an argument? Do I need it separate or not? All that took some level of brain cycles. If I can have AI automate a lot of the stuff and just do stuff for me, then I can save brain cycles for the hard problems. For instance, nobody I know can just code hard for 8 hours a day, hard problems, da 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 da. I can code for many hours a day if AI is handling big chunks of the stuff, and I only have to worry about the hard parts and review, etc. And that's where I think is one of the biggest benefits is being able to just increase your capacity for how much kind of cognitive energy and capacity you have, which I think is really, really exciting. The other cool thing I did the other day is I had an agent. I'll show you this workflow here in one sec. I had the Cursor agent working on a hard problem for me where it's looping through it and it was iterating and it was trying to get tests to pass. And I had to jump in an Uber. And all I did is I tethered my laptop to my phone. I got in the Uber. I get car sick. I can't type while I'm sitting in the back of a car. The agent was working on the problem for the 20 minutes I was in the Uber. I would look over sometimes, make sure it's not derailing, but I got 20 more minutes of programming done on a really high urgency thing that I really needed to be able to spend that 20 minutes on if I could. And I wasn't doing anything. I just let the agent keep running. It is awesome. So let's kind of go into, I'll stop teasing and let's go into some stuff. So let's make an edit to this homepage. The cool thing that these things are great is they're great at UIs. So let's just say, let's actually do this side by side because it's fun to watch it hot reload. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, add a subtitle on the homepage under Vite plus React. So I'm going to say, I didn't say anything super specific, and now I can add whatever I want. What's cool is like, you don't even have to be a design expert. You don't even have to think through what that copy should be. I really like prototype-driven development. I like to see things and then assess how they make me feel. Kind of, it makes me be like the user. And there we go. So it gave me something. This is cool. I didn't have to think about the text size, the placements, the tags to use. And I can look at it. A powerful combination for modern web development. That's pretty good. Maybe I want to make it not bold. Let's say make the text not bold. I don't like it that way. Also give it a max width so it wraps. I think it might be cool to kind of like compress it in a little bit. And here, I'm not wasting brain cycles thinking about even the small details. I'm just letting it run. Whatever I mean, this is sort of the definition of vibe coding. When people say vibe coding, like they mean this. I'm just having it do stuff, I'm getting vibes, and I'm sending vibes back, and let's see how it does. Once it updates a file, it's going to save. Not bad. The text is a little bit too dark and hard to see. And if I'm like, hey, I think it's annoying that I have to go through and kind of have it, sometimes it's a little easier to update by hand. You can still update by hand. This is Cursor. This is an IDE. This has all the things. So I'm going to jump over to app CSS. I'm going to find the subtitle. And I think that color is like way too not the right color. Bam. And then cool. That looks better. I think it looks pretty nice. Max width is not nearly wide enough. So let's do 400. This is actually how a lot of builders UIs have been built. In a lot of cases, we sort of vibe code the initial versions. Like I'll show you this Figma plugin. This whole UI vibe coded. I can have it generate designs for me. This chat UI vibe coded. This whole UI you're seeing here vibe coded. Just how does it feel? Give me a UI. Let me see how it feels. It's very prototype-driven development, which I've always believed in, but it's hard to do when you don't have an AI that can just rip things out for you. Going to other tabs, this import tab, vibe coded, 100%. All the UX, etc. Oops, I shouldn't have closed that tab because now you can't see my awesome design it was generating, but you get the idea. You can do this in large production applications. It is not limited to small things. But that's probably a quick sense of like what you can do with the agent. You can build whatever. So let's go and do something much more difficult. So you totally get it. We just vibe coded that stuff. That's awesome. But where Cursor really, really shines is using true like agentic flows. So this is where I think a lot of people aren't doing the right thing. So let me show you the first bit of setup you need for this. You need to go over to settings and you need to go to features and you need to turn on YOLO mode. Don't be afraid of YOLO mode. YOLO mode just means it can run certain bash commands automatically, and you can specify what commands. This is the prompt I use for that. So you can either provide a specific allow list and deny list, or you can just provide a prompt. I prefer the prompt. And I basically just say any kind of tests are allowed. You'll see why this matters in a second. You can run vtest, npm test, nr test, all that's fine. Build commands too. It's really handy to have it run tsc, etc. Creating files, making directories, all of that is okay. So I gave it some guidance. Here's sort of the bounds, don't rmrf my root directory or anything like that. So then let's go back and let's ask something harder. So this is a prompt you may have seen me do before. You get all kinds of different results with AI with this prompt, which is what makes it interesting in my opinion. But this is a prompt that AI pretty much never gets right the first time. So I'm going to say, write me a function that converts Markdown to HTML. If you just do that, what's going to happen is it's going to generate this function, then you're going to use it, and you're going to realize it has bugs. And that's annoying. And then you're going to go back to the Cursor chat and be like, oh, it has this bug, please fix it. And then in fixing it, it might break something else. And like you kind of feel like you're the QA tester here and you're working for the AI, and we don't want that. The best thing ever to accomplish difficult, challenging things effectively and to see a real agent sort of in action is to do this. Write tests first and then run them and fix the code until all tests pass. And I'm going to hit enter. So let me get into the definition of an agent really quickly. A lot of people are calling things agent. This is an agent. This is an agent. An agent, generally speaking, is a large language model on a loop. So the LLM does something, it evaluates if that's correct, and it continues until it's decided that it has completed the task end to end. And so here we've generated our tests. What's nice is also when it comes to generative AI and your ID, etc., you don't get any guarantees. This gives us some level of guarantees. If these tests pass, a lot of markdown conversion functionality will be correct. And so this is sort of nice to see because we don't have to manually test all this stuff. So it wrote its first pass on the code and it ran the test, and 2 out of 8 tests passed. So that's pretty normal. So the first attempt by the AI did not complete the task end to end correctly. Going further, let's see how far we can get. So now it's updating the code. So if we want to go over to the markdown it added, so here's the functionality to create the HTML from the markdown string. And bam, there we go. It passed all the tests. Again, I did that with no hands. It wrote code, it evaluated for correctness, it fixed the bugs until it ensured correctness. And I did nothing. I just YOLO coded one prompt. Now this can be way more advanced. I have had the agents go for many minutes at a time. Just know one thing, Cursor will stop after 25 tool calls, so like 25 iterations, more or less. And you just have to click continue. That happens from time to time. Now, let me describe a couple gotchas with this workflow you need to be aware of. The first one I want to point out, though, is this doesn't work with just adding tests, the AI writing tests. You can write your own tests too. And this works really well when you have a test suite, either by the AI or otherwise, because if we want to add things, we can verify the AI didn't break something unexpectedly, which AI will do that sometimes. So another thing we can do is say, add more extensive tests, then update the code until they all pass. So here's the key thing you need to watch out for. Generally speaking, you should not just run this and then go disappear and walk away. Because you need to sort of babysit this process. It can derail in a number of ways. It might misinterpret what you asked and start going off in some weird direction. Or one of the biggest issues I commonly see is one of these iterations, it does something weird. For example, one time I was demoing this live on a stage. A common one I always do, like update some React code, button that launches a modal. And it decided to not use conventional React and JSX. It decided that the modal is going to be using document.createElement and it's going to query selector. It went into like jQuery style mode one time. It only takes one time. So if it's making updates and one of those updates does a lot of weird stuff, the problem is weird stuff in the code now sort of becomes a source of truth. So the next time the LLM visits that, it's going to start adding more code on top. It's going to start editing that create elements, query selector stuff. And that becomes a big problem. Then it'll derail further. A lot of times you need to revert. So here you can see again, we've got 18 tests passing, 7 failing, and you're going to want to watch things. So you can see these sort of diffs it's generating. Let's look at those tests. Another thing to watch out for is if it generates a test that doesn't make sense. That's somewhat rare in my experience, but if it does that, it might iterate on this code forever to get a test that'll never pass to pass. So you might want to, again, look it over. You don't have to think it through hard. Does this look correct? Yeah, this looks pretty correct. Here's the diffs. Here's what it's updating. So it's doing some encoding and decoding of these HTML escape characters. These look like the common ones. You might want to stop it sometimes. Like maybe, so here's making progress. Maybe, oh, actually, here's a great example. Hold on. I think it's doing one thing we don't want. Yes. Okay. So here's what you need to do sometimes. You need to stop the AI and give it some feedback. A lot like if you're working with another human. The human is doing their thing. Stop the AI and say, hold on. I don't care about multi-lines and like formatting, indenting. Make sure we only generate one big single line string of HTML. Make sure the tests expects this and the implementation adheres to this too. So that was a derail. I've seen the agent go for many minutes trying to get like a regex-based HTML generation with proper indenting working. And, as you can see, we're not using ASTs and parsers. It's just using regexes. I know from my experience as a developer that actually for markdown conversion, that's not the worst thing in the world. For a simple markdown conversion, that's generally actually okay. The problem, though, is it's not going to generate good indented code. You need to actually use a real parser and an abstract syntax tree and a code generator to accomplish that. So sometimes you need to catch it trying to do things that actually were never intended as requirements and just stop it and let it update. This is a really key thing to watch out for in general. If you ever find that it did derail, like it went way out of bounds, you can always revert to any point in time in Cursor. So we can go back here and let's see. Can I revert with this? I wasn't sure if I could do it there, but we can always do it anywhere you chatted. So if, for instance, since this message I put in here, if it's derailed ever since, a very common thing to do is literally just hit restore checkpoint or just go in and modify the prompt to be more clear. Also, I only want a one-line string, etc. And then you can hit send and let it go. So anyway, you can scale this technique up to the most complicated problems I've ever seen. But the one thing this technique on the front end will never satisfy effectively, like really well, is building on the front end. For instance, even with things like tool use and computer use, vision in LLMs is highly low fidelity. What I mean by that is if you like I ran an experiment before where I had a screenshot of a design and I had the LLM generate code, then look at the screenshot and update the code until it perfectly matched the design. What you find is it'll never even remotely perfectly match. The fidelity of LLM vision is actually surprisingly poor. So you need a different workflow from this to actually work with design. So the big thing I'm going to show here is turning these designs into code and then building off of those. We can add features, UIs, and functionality. This, when you take it from a visual lens, like here from Figma, we can do more things with more team members. So here we can have our designers jump in and start adding some initial functionality. Cool. So I'm going to take, let's grab this one. This one looks good. And then view code and builder. And now we'll start adding some stuff on top of it. Cool. So here's a dashboard. It kind of shrunk things up to be a little bit more like responsive, but I can always change things around visually. So if you like, you can go in and you can do like height, fill the page height. There we go. It's beautiful. And then we can change whatever we want as well. Now we've got the design in here. It's nice and responsive. I can edit more things if I like to. Like I kind of like it might look a little nicer with some padding here. So a little padding, fix that, adjust it for mobile however you want. We can hide things from mobile, focus on the table. We can switch these layouts. Maybe you want a vertical layout with a little bit of a gap. Here we're designing inside of code. And maybe I'll go back and add a little padding here. But bam. So you could do any cleanup. Remember, AI is not perfect. And when we're looking for pixel perfect, it's nice to make adjustments sometimes. So let's keep going and let's add some functionality here. So here I have this placeholder, which is like, hey, put the users table here. Let's do something with that. So from the functionality we have right now, we have our beautiful code being generated from the design. So in this case, we're using React. With React, we have a whole bunch of other framework options. Like there's a big list here. You can even generate emails now, which is kind of cool and native. Bunch of different style libraries, languages, testing frameworks, et cetera, et cetera. And I chose TypeScript, so it's generating multiple components. It's generating TypeScript types and typings. And it is providing all this with kind of neat use of components, and it also can reuse the components in our code base as well. And so any of this stuff, we can pull down our code base, and it kind of creates this nice kind of reusability with types, prop types, etc. And then we can also tell it to add functionality here as well. So if you want to do some kind of quick iteration here as well, we can even do the same prompt I mentioned. Now in this mode, this is purely the code export mode, but as soon as you're ready and good, anything in here you can literally just grab and copy and paste into your code base, and it'll just output these files as is, integrate however you want. Now, another really cool workflow I want to show though, is being able to go all the way just from Figma to your code base. So this is going to bring the design right into Cursor. So I'm going to use a different design here. Let's go into this CLI flow and let me select this. So I have a site. Do I have the thing running? Localhost 3000. Nope. Let's run it. Great. Localhost 3000 launch. So here's my beautiful blog. And for our blog, let's zoom out a little bit. For our blog, we added a new contact page. So let's do something with that. So if I go over to Figma and I grab this, let's do an export of this. And what we can do is we can essentially copy this direct from Figma to Cursor. So as this AI runs, I'll show you being able to pull it direct into Cursor and then iterate from within Cursor without even additional sort of like UIs. So here's my import. I really like the look of this one. So let's capture this one. Bam. And this time, instead of going into Builder, where you can do all kinds of editing and visual development in the visual editor, I'm just going to grab the CLI. So we generate a CLI command that from my result, I can pull right in. So let's go over and let's go to here is the project that I showed you. And cool, nothing here. And then what we can do is we can just paste the command. This is a lot like kind of copying from Figma and pasting into Cursor right here inside of the terminal. So I'm going to go yes. And this, of course, works in any IDE. This can work directly in the terminal. So you don't have to be using Cursor or any specific thing. Do I want to switch spaces? Stay in Cursor. And so here I can give a prompt. So you saw before when I was generating code, I can choose frameworks, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and say, add this new contact page. So a little bit of context so it knows what to do. You can select files for the context. That's useful for a very large project, or you can skip. I'm going to be easy and skip. And here you're going to see a similar agentic flow right here live. And so it's going to think, it's going to figure out what the heck to do with this design. And most importantly, it's going to figure out how to put this into your production code base, noting your specific sort of IDE settings, or more specifically, actually, it does look at Cursor rules if you use a Cursor rules file, but it knows things like your project structure. For instance, it knows we use a schema validation library. So the first thing it generated was schema validation. Now it also knows that we use the app directory and we have this sort of underscore components file. So it's putting the reusable components in there. It generated a contact info component. Now it's generating a contact form component. It also knows that in order to add a new route with the app router, how it needs to do that, which we'll see here shortly, and a bunch of other things which are super duper handy. Let's let it keep going, and then maybe let me double check on the questions in the Q&A, and maybe we can get some questions answered as we go. First question, will Klein work? For anybody who's not familiar with Klein, it is an agent a lot like Cursor's agentic mode, and it works similarly well. I don't think it works quite as well as Cursor, but it is very good. So most of the things I showed here 100% work with Klein as well. Okay, so here's sort of the file changes I made. It gave me a summary. You can make changes however you want. Why don't we go over and see if we have a beautiful contact page? And we do. Look at that. That's our contact page exactly from the Figma design in full detail. When it generated this, we can go into some of the files. I think it's pretty cool to see. So we've got this contact page.tsx. It's reusing our components. So it created two components and reused our container component like our other pages all automatically. If we go over to contact info, you see that we have our components we generated, all the SVGs, all these sort of details we want, and then contact form. This one's cool because this is reusing the CN class names function. It even adds some submit handling, like, hey, do what you want with the data. It's using, what is this library? We're using React hooked form and Zod right here inside of our form. So again, it's looking at other examples of forms and setting up this form just like we would. All automatically, I did nothing. And then what's cool, we can go over to the context schema and it made a schema using Zod. So again, this is exactly how we do forms in all our parts of this app. It's doing it for us automatically. When you're ready, you can commit it. You can you can use the chat here to make additional modifications. For instance, maybe I'll save and then, accept and continue. And I'll say, make it mobile friendly was one prompt. It's pretty mobile friendly, which is nice. What do I want to choose? Let's say make the submit button blue. Same exact stuff you can do here or inside of Cursor's editor. I'll show you that here in a second. But same thing, it can look at our files, you can modify our design. If anything came out wrong with the design, like, hey, actually I wanted two buttons, or hey, you missed something because of whatever reason, it's AI. But boom, it made our update super duper fast, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, we can jump back over to Cursor and let's have Cursor do some stuff too. Cursor, let's say on the contact us page, make the contact us text blue. We're going to be adding some blue highlights or vibe coding it, all that good stuff. So again, this is probably the most seamless workflow you've ever seen between I'm just going to pull in the Figma design, I'm going to get it in, I'm going to add the functionality and any other detail, and we can just rock and roll. Cool. So as Cursor, as you're familiar with, it searched the code base, it found the file. Now it's making the update. A little proud to say our CLI was faster, but that's okay. Both are useful. And then, but bam, contact us is blue. So very, very kind of seamless transition there, which I think is a lot of fun. Okay, Henrik says, how are Cursor and Builder.io related? Um, they're technically not, you know, a front-end developer wanting to do front-end development, I think should use a combination of Cursor and Builder.io. Use Builder.io for the use cases I showed. Turn the designs into high fidelity, high quality code. Don't just upload screenshots to Cursor. It's going to be very low fidelity. Pick up on things using Cursor and apply things. And we're kind of low on time and I want to answer questions. But other things you can do with Builder too is if the design changes, you could also use the same CLI to sync just the changes. So let's say a new button was added or whatever, you can grab that again and it'll just pull in the change. So you have a very seamless between Figma and code workflow where you can continue to add functionality and update designs and just sync them down across and build out functionality and other things with Cursor. Let's keep going down. Have I tried the Claude Code CLI tool? No, I have not. But oh, that's really interesting. Sean says that it works better for 3.7. I could see that. Like they design their tools around how they know the model will perform best. So it's possible the Claude CLI, Claude Code CLI is better with 3.7. I have heard other people working to um, refine and improve their use of 3.7 as well. So I've seen the Cursor team and others saying, hey, we have experiments of how to use 3.7 best and where to use it. Well, they'll do automatically in certain cases. Let's see. Let's try to pick some kind of high value ones. Divya asked, does the production code support localization? Absolutely. So just like you saw, it's a great question. So just like you saw when it generated this production code using Zod forms, Tailwinds, React hook form, etc. The same thing applies to localization. If it sees your code is using a certain localization library a certain way, how it set up keys and mappings and the components or constructs will support it the same way out of the box. And I'm showing React here, but we support all the common frameworks, React, Vue, Svelte. We've got native support. I mentioned we just added email because that one came up a lot, which is kind of cool. So if you want to turn designs into actual like table layouts with inline styles and all that wonky email stuff, you can absolutely do that. Let's go. Let's continue to go through the Q&A here. Try and pick some ones that are most relevant to as broad of the group as possible. Oh yeah, good question. One question came in, can I use builder.io to build an entire design system? You absolutely can. So you don't have to generate a whole page. You can generate just a button. In fact, you can also use the AI to select a group of buttons and say, hey, give me one button from this group with all the necessary props, etc. And then you can also sync changes back from Figma anytime you want as well. We don't have a specific article on this, but we definitely should make one. So that's a really good reminder. Oh, here's another great question. Does Builder recognize Figma token variables and implement them in code? That is correct. So if you are using token variables in Figma, it will use those same names in code. And so whether you use CSS variables, Tailwind, I guess they call them variables in Tailwind as well, design tokens using other formats and frameworks, yes, it'll carry those across automatically. And we have two features that are handy to know if you want like extreme control. We have something called component mapping and token mapping. What that means is you can create, it's basically a JavaScript function that gives a precise mapping from what you have in Figma to code. Because in Figma, you might have slightly different naming conventions or formatting, dash case versus a Pascal case or whatever. So you can actually set up deterministic mappings so that when something's in the design as a token, it becomes a variable in code exactly the same way every time. Because what we find is it's really amazing to use the LLM to get going. And then when you want more control and precision, you can be adding those in at any rate that you like. Oh, here's a question. Is this more useful for, there's kind of two things here, like an existing project or a greenfield project? Or you could ask, like, is this for brand new things versus like small projects versus large? I will say that AI works automatically really well without having to really try or care with greenfields projects, small projects, and simple use cases. You don't have to be an expert at the AI tools to do that. Where you need expertise is with the large projects. The large projects, you're still going to want to manually manage context sometimes. So the large project, you're still going to want to say like, you know, you're going to want to tag if you type in like at and a file name at You're going to want to tag the files that are relevant. That is something you'll want to do in a large project. In a large project, you're also going to want unit tests, and you're going to want the agent to iterate until unit tests pass. That's my two biggest recommendations for large projects. And sometimes you might want to add cursor rules, just essentially a text file that explains some nuances that are useful for Cursor to know about the project. Oh, Empress asked, could you reverse engineer the UI from a website? I mean, I'll do you one better. You can you don't even need to reverse engineer UI from a website. We can go into Builder. Let's go to dashboard demo. Sure. What you can do with Builder, let's go to some existing website. Oh, it's a cool one. Let's go to Nike.com. Let's try and just grab this, copy layout. Maybe I'll just start with this. You can do really big things too. We can copy the whole thing. It takes longer. It's crunching. In fact, my computer might freeze for a second. Crunching an entire large website like this takes some work. It resizes the browser to get different breakpoints so it can capture styles correctly across the different sizes. And then we can drop that anywhere we like. I'll keep going through these. Cool. Copy to clipboard. And let's see. Can we pull in everything all at once? Let me show you this other thing in a second. Cool. Let's see if this might be too large to paste. Oh, that's a giant, giant web page, so maybe it's not easy to do all at once, but let's give it a shot. It's going to freeze up while it's capturing and processing all of that data. It might actually be too large to save, but why don't we hop back over here while that's running. We'll check on it here in a second. The one thing I did want to show is check out this beautiful dashboard. This is what I'm going to show you before. But this was a dashboard that I essentially generated and edited here inside of Builder that is connected to live data. So I did that all with the chat here. Maybe it'll let me do the chat. In fact, let's try typing something. Change this to be black, not purple. Oh, there we go. Yep, we got it. Cool. I can actually hop back to one of the demos I was starting to show here in a second because I think it's a fun one. But in this world, so you can also use Builder to visually make changes as well. So I made the button black. That's fun. But I think the much more fun one is like add functionality. Like, let's say this. When I click the button, toggle it between being black and purple. Oops, I didn't have the button selected. Let's see if it can figure out that I was talking about the same button. But yeah, here's my beautiful table that you saw before. The table is functional. This is what I also added previously with AI. So if you remember what I imported had no table, I just told it to generate a table. I told it to hook it up to our users API, and I told it to add these different sort by options, and boom, built the app for me. I can turn that into code, etc., which I'll show you. Here, I just told it to add this functionality to toggle between black and purple. That's fun. Literally I'm just making stuff, and it's all visually editable too. This is, a lot of people argue like Webflow versus Lovable or whatever. You can have both. We can literally just make stuff with AI here. We can say, let's do this. When the button is clicked, launch a modal. We can literally visually do all this stuff, add this functionality, etc. Then when you're ready, output as code. And this all came from Figma. Another really cool thing you can do, let me show you another cool thing, is I can go back to Figma and let's copy something. Why don't I copy, let's copy just this. So I'm going to hit this export button. Let's let that do its hard stuff. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring just that over. So here, boom, it's launching my modal. Builder automatically will use your design system and components, etc. So cool, click the button, launch the modal. But instead of this modal stuff, I want to put this modal stuff. So let's take this one, looks nice to me. And here's an option I didn't show before. You can copy things to Builder. So I'm going to hit the copy to Builder button. And then I'm just going to paste this right in. Bam! How cool is that? We literally just copied and pasted from Figma, and we're building this live. Like literally, I just added the functionality, I pasted in, boom. Then when we're ready, we can just export all this to code. Now here, this version has the functionality, like the API calls, etc. So what you'll see here, and again, you can use the CLI. I don't know if you saw it, but that CLI I showed before, you could also grab that. You don't have to view the code here. I just think it's convenient to show it character by character. But you can also 100% just copy from here what you've made and just paste it in your repo, and we'll integrate it just like you saw. But I really want to show one cool thing, if I let this run for a second, and how it makes the API calls for me. In fact, let's do something else instead. I want to select, let's say I'm just going to select just this table. So current selection only, let's let that run. And yeah, so what's cool, so check this out. It's hitting this randomuser.me API. I think that's what I told it to do previously. You can have it use your own APIs too. You can add instructions, kind of like cursor rules of like, here's my APIs and use those. But I also told it like, hey, I like tan stack query. It would have figured this out automatically if I had it run in the code base. But this is just a kind of a view of the flexibility. So you can bring something in, you can visually prototype it with your design team. They can make the interactions. They can paste more stuff from Figma. We can borrow more things. Like, I don't know. Let's add some e-commerce to this. I don't know. Let's grab this section kind of one at a time, and I'll let that run for a split second. And then we can just paste and kind of make our own kind of completely kind of created thing with interactivity functionality, like whatever you want. I think this modal was kind of a fun example. Another cool thing you can do is like add a team to-do list below this. So you can enhance the design functionality because that's the common feedback, right? The design is created and the design suggests it would have certain functionality, but any design to code is only taking like the flat design. Like, sure, we made it responsive, like that's nice, that's something. But like, what about the functionality? The design represents a table that should be connected somewhere. Like, cool, let's have the tools connect the table. You can also, the other cool thing you could do is you can just publish this stuff too. In fact, if I go and let's say I'm taking this example and copying it to Builder, we can go back over here and just paste this wherever too. Maybe we're going to take this and just paste it below. Bam, there's our section. And if you don't like, this text is wrapping, we can go in and just change this here. We can just go text, I think it's white space. You could enter any CSS values. Bam, no wrap. Beautiful. You can create whatever you want. It's like magic. I wanted to show you one other cool thing. There's one other functionality you can do too, which is publishing. So Builder can also connect to an existing site or app over an API. Oh, there's our team to-do list. Here, let me cut and paste this over here. Let me show you what it added that I previously asked. So remember I asked for a team to-do list. Let's go in here. Let's go to preview mode. And boom, there's our beautiful to-do list. We can customize it however we want. We can take other stuff from Figma. We can have it do all kinds of fun stuff. This is fun. This is kind of all visual. And again, grab the code at the end of it or hook up the API and publish. I'll show you that API really quickly. So let's do an export of this. It's warning me that I have a large design that will be okay here, I think. Let me see if I can get through a couple more questions. Maybe I can rapid fire a few. And I want to show you how you could just publish this stuff as well. Okay. Will the session recording be shared later? Yes. I showed reverse engineering a UI from a website. We do support Figma tokens. Does Builder support component libraries? Yes. You also don't need to strictly use auto layouts like you might have seen in any other kind of design conversion tool. Let's see. Why don't we keep going through some other questions? Does this support a progressive web app, PWA, like with Ionic? 100%. Are we wrapping Cursor? No. we're just different than Cursor. I recommend both tools. If I'm going to recommend like AI coding tools, like I'm definitely going to recommend Cursor without a doubt. Okay, cool. We've got a couple nice imports here. Why don't we take, which one looks best to me? Let's take this one. And let me show you one other really cool thing you can do. I'm going to launch this. I imported this whole like e-commerce homepage into Builder. And then what I can do is I can just publish this. So here I've imported this. I can continue to make changes. Like for instance, maybe I want to go here and say, add a bunch of stuff. So make this have a black background with white text and fill the browser width, the full page browser width. I don't even know if that's clear or not. So we can go in and make adjustments however we want, change the aesthetic however we want. And then when we're done, we can also do personalization. I'll show you that really briefly too. We can just publish this. So Builder, you can almost think of it as like a lovable or a bolt that's connected to your actual website. You can use your actual website's components, etc. And then we can have this type of AI kind of Figma import and just publish it to our homepage, a landing page, whatever. It's a pretty simple integration and pretty dang powerful. Here, for my prompt, it's going in and it's replacing a bunch of these different colors. You could see it's using color variables. So I mentioned the tokens. The initial import was full of these different color variables that match our design system and kind of what we expect here. I'll show you one other kind of thing here in a second. But when you're all done with your changes, this is actually, I should have shown, this is connected to an actual live website. So when you're done with your changes, you can request them to be reviewed. And then instead of having a code generation, you can literally just publish it to the live website. So this is how you can just launch. This is how we launch new home pages, A/B test variations. You can personalize. You can do all kinds of like really cool stuff there. Let me see if I got a couple, we got 4 more minutes. So let's rapid fire a few more questions here if we can. I have not used Claude Code much. We do to support design tokens. This is ultra rapid fire. Let's see. Can I use an in-house design system with Builder to convert designs to code? Yes. So maybe the team can drop in the docs for what we call component mapping, but Builder can connect to any custom design system, which is really cool. And so it can be using, when it imports, it's using all your components, your columns and buttons and whatever else. Um, should the Figma have auto layout? It does not require auto layout. It used to, but we do not require auto layout anymore. It's a best practice though. You will get best results most consistently using auto layouts. How do you copy the websites? To copy websites in, you just need a Chrome extension. Builder.io Chrome extension. Find that, you can copy websites into, here's the doc on it. Why don't I, if the team could throw this doc in the chat, this is how you could copy websites, web layouts into Builder and output to code. You can also paste into Figma as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, if the Figma design is not well organized with components or structured, does Builder offer well-structured components on the other side? Yes, 100%. So that's an important call out. All those really nice components came from the AI, not from like a specific design setup. Oh yeah, if I don't have a design, can I just give a long prompt and use the words in the AI build it? Yeah, of course. Big time. Absolutely. In fact, we can do whatever we want. Like you saw me generate this to-do list. I just made this up. This to-do list was 100% not something that was designed at all. But as you saw, when we generate things, we will replicate your design patterns, which I think is quite cool. Can you do hover, focus states, etc.? Yeah, absolutely. So I could have also said like on hover changes color or whatever too. That all works. You can toggle command slash to jump into preview mode and like, see the preview mode here too. But bam, but bam. It's fun, right? Let's see. Updates and two-way. Yeah, so I mentioned the two-way really quickly. I'm out of time to demo it, but being able to change designs and bring it into code and then make code changes bring back to Figma. I'll post a video on YouTube about this soon. It's a really cool workflow to go back and forth. AI changed the code and now it's in Figma. Change design to Figma and now AI brings it into the code. And you can totally use animations, libraries like Framer Motion, etc. Okay, I was able to rapid fire go through a decent amount of these questions. I'm trying to see if there's anything else major I missed. Can I work with any form library? Yeah, Formic totally works. I showed React Hook Form, but it doesn't have to be just that. Okay, we are at time, everybody. I want to thank everyone for coming. You can go if you can go sign up for Builder and try all the stuff out now. You can use the Builder Chrome extension as well as the Builder Figma plugin. And I'm very excited for y'all to do that. You can also reach out and talk to our sales team if you want a demo for your company, and we can walk you through how to set up Builder, custom design systems, custom integration, all that stuff, publish to your live site or app. And then continue to check us out. We will send a follow-up email with all of the recording and additional resources and information. But more than anything, jump in, try it out, experiment, do all that good stuff. I had a ton of fun, everybody. We'll keep doing live streams like this like every 2 weeks. I try to also stream on my YouTube channel on Friday morning, so catch that. And otherwise, I will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.